It's the Fiesta Bowl. Party at Trey's house.
Another great year here on the Blue White Tailgate. It is time to party. Back-to-back 10-win seasons, another New Year's Six bowl game.
It's going to be really fun for Penn State. We're here with the poinsettias. I got my Christmas haircut. And yes, I did get a lollipop with that haircut. Blue White Tailgate is next.
And we welcome everyone to the Blue White Tailgate Show as Penn State gets ready for Washington in the Fiesta Bowl. Steve, Trey, Todd, and obviously 50% off on poinsettias. As you can see here, as John Stroh took advantage of the holiday discounts. All right. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to break down the Fiesta Bowl game between Penn State and Washington. Looking forward to that. And guys, as we all know, and you're going to see graphically, Penn State has had great success in the Fiesta Bowl, the first 6 trips. Christmas Day, they started this journey with Arizona State in 1977. They're 6-0 in this doggone thing. And I mean, you had a positive experience, didn't you?
I did. I was looking. I was just looking at the payout for each team. Where I think in '86 when we played, it was I think $2.5 million, which was unheard of at the time. But I think each team gets $17 million. Todd. A little different now.
I believe you are linked forever with the Fiesta Bowl versus Miami. Are you not?
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
if
that's
I
a
be
good
linked
thing.
by something, that's fine.
Just remember that $17 million gets split evenly in the Big Ten, so Rutgers gets the same cut as everybody else.
Rutgers doesn't deserve anything. They stink.
I just thought I'd point that out to you because of your New Jersey roots.
Right, and Rutgers did their part. They lost to both of these teams that are in the Fiesta
Exactly
Bowl.
right. They're the common opponent.
Yeah.
We should have had Chris Ash on the show and interviewed him as a common opponent. All right, PSECU pregame update, and here is Allison Luthman.
Hey guys, welcome to your PSECU pregame update, bringing you everything you need to know before kickoff. Penn State is 6-0 in Fiesta Bowls, with one of those wins being a national championship in '87, making it their most frequent and successful bowl destination. When you look at the rosters for this year's game, it is full of a multitude of dynamic matchups. One of those being that each team features an elite quarterback in Trace McSorley and Jake Browning, who are both Davy O'Brien Award semifinalists. Penn State's All-American running back Saquon Barkley, who was named the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, will face All-American defensive tackle Vita Vea, who was the Pac12 Defensive Player of the Year. That's been your PSECU pregame update. Guys.
All right, Allison. I think Allison set the table as well. I mean, this is a really good matchup, Todd, between these two teams.
I love what the committee did this year, to tell you the truth, the way they matched it up. They resisted the urge to move Notre Dame up and bump Washington, and they gave the spot to Washington because Huskies earned it. And it's a good chance for Penn State to prove to Washington, hello, we deserve that number 4 spot last year. They get to go to a game they haven't played in a long time, face another Pac-12 team after losing to USC last year. I just like the way this whole thing sets up. Obviously, I like being in Arizona, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite the same entertainment value if it had been Notre Dame, Trey.
No, I think I would have ridden my bicycle out to the Fiesta Bowl if we were playing Notre Dame.
All right, you go through a successful season. Penn State had one last year, but they didn't win the Rose Bowl. And James Franklin knows they need to cap this thing off right.
You know, you want to end the season on a positive note. You want those seniors to have that, you know, that last experience of being a real positive one that they can you know, savor for the rest of their lives. You know, you prefer the coaches not to, you know, go into the off season with a bad taste in their mouth, and the fans and the media members and the administration. You want to end on a positive note. You want to be successful. You want to be 1-0. I don't think there's any doubt about the importance of that.
And that's one thing you'll see. One of the keys in this game will be giveaway, takeaway. Washington's a +12. Penn State's a +14. Look, this goes to our Kish Bank momentum moment. And Trey, you played in this game, and when you played in this game, turnovers won the game for you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, in '87 we beat the thugs of the University of Miami. I mean, we caused 7 turnovers. I mean, you can't beat anyone turning the ball over 7 times. I mean, the fact is Penn State's been very, very good, plus takeaway, same as Washington. I think they're top 5, top 10 in the country, both teams, and they're very evenly matched. It's going to be fun to watch.
I mean, that's the part, I mean, Todd gets down to. I mean, you look at the two teams, you can pick out on each side, Todd, where there's a matchup that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about the momentum moment. Sometimes in a bowl game, it's the wake-up moment. Because sometimes you get into a game and it's a little bit sleepy, and then you create a big turnover, and all of a sudden that momentum shifts for you, and that really makes things snap and makes you wake up and realize, hey, we are in a ball game. We want to win this thing.
Yeah, and that's the other part, too. The time of the game is actually pretty good. It's 2 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 in the East, but 2 o'clock Mountain Time. That's always, a lot of people always felt that's like the best time to play. They should be able to jump and get this thing going right away.
Yeah, I mean, and they're going to be out there for a week or 10 days. I mean, they're going to be acclimated with the weather. They're going to, I mean, you've got a lot of experienced guys coming back, so, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, coming up, we'll take a look at the Nittany Lion offense and how they match up with the Washington defense as we continue with the Blue White Tailgate after this. All right, let's take a look at the Penn State offense and how they match up against the Washington defense. And we'll start things off with the Joel Comper drive of the season. It's pretty obvious which drive it is going to be. The Nittany Lions are down late at Iowa and put together a sterling drive of 80 yards, starting with Trace McSorley. Let's go to Juwan Johnson. That's a good way to start. Probably is going to be a good way to end, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Here he is again.
Now, that's the 4th down play right there.
Yep. That was huge. That's the Blacknall, correct?
Yeah, Saeed Blacknall.
Yep.
People forget about that in the scheme of it. Everyone looks at the end of it, forget about the 4th down play. This is where I think he can beat Washington.
Yeah.
Right here.
I mean, he's got such great feet and he's got good vision, and he plays very loose. I mean, you hear that term a lot, but he plays loose because he's so confident in what he can do.
That's also where you'll see some similarities between him and Jake Browning, where they use their feet to get a little bit of an open spot to get a little extra time to go downfield.
Yeah, the one difference, though, is that McSorley will use his feet to run with the ball. Browning won't. And look at this. Saquon Barkley picks up the blitz. See, that's where you get to be the complete player. Juwan makes the catch. Great throw. We talk about the traffic he threw, but Josie Jewell, the defensive player of the year, got stoned by the offensive player of the year on a blitz.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why Saquon Barkley should have won the Heisman, which is just pathetic that he did not get invited to New York. I mean, he's clearly the best player in the country.
Todd and I are confused as to where you stand.
You know where I stand.
I mean,
Saquon Barkley's the best player in the country.
Have you had trouble interpreting him over the years?
No, he's pretty clear. He's pretty clear. Crystal.
Ridiculous.
Is his nickname.
Crystal.
Right.
It's a joke.
Are you clear?
I'm
Crystal.
very clear.
All right. Of course, there's been a change in coordinator. Joe Moorhead has taken the head coaching job at Mississippi State. Charles Huff, in fact, goes with him to be co-offensive coordinator down there. It means Ricky Ronnie takes over as the OC. It's a challenge that he is looking forward to.
At the practices we've had, the guys have responded well. They know that, I'm going to be myself, and I think that's one thing that's helped me in this profession is always being myself, and I'm not going to change. And try to act like I'm somebody that I'm not. So I think those, our players respond to that. They respond to people being genuine, and they always have. And so I think that's where I'm probably doing the best right now.
And Todd, I don't think it's going to hurt his feelings at all that the first time out as the full-time OC, he'll get to call plays that include Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, it's nice to have playmakers to go to. And look, he's been interviewing for the job, as Coach Franklin said, for many, many years. So he knows what Ricky Ronnie can do. He called the plays back in the TaxSlayer Bowl. And Saquon Barkley was not available at Fiesta Bowl Media Day, but that's okay. When you really want to find out something about someone, you ask the people that are closest to him, right? His teammates. And just like Trey, they started off by saying they weren't happy that Saquon was not invited to New York.
As a team, we were kind of upset. For us, we feel like he's the best player in the nation. We felt like he should have been at least at the ceremony. But I mean, the committee chose 3 great players. I mean, not going to say that none of them didn't deserve it, but we just felt Saquon should have been there.
No Heisman invitation, but number 26 is a consensus All-American. Although you would never know it if you meet him.
Just his attitude about things. He's not a cocky guy. I mean, he's confident, but there's a difference between confident and cocky. He's very humble.
He sits on top of Mel Kiper's NFL draft board as the #1 overall prospect. Whenever he decides to go pro, his teammates say it's his off-the-field measurables that will impress.
I think for the people that don't really know him, he's going to go out and blow away any kind of physical test that they put him through. But his character, I think, is something that's really going to blow away GMs and coaches whenever he gets to that point. So that's something that for the people who don't know him is going to be awesome for them to be able to see that part of him.
The records are too numerous to mention his legacy intact. The guys he took the field with in the blue and white will always consider it an honor.
Oh yeah, that'll be my resume. If I ever, apply for a job anywhere, I blocked for Saquon.
Had a little fun with that. Ask Ryan Bates. He's always going to be on your resume, isn't he? You got the block for Saquon Barkley. That's what he said. You can always put that at the top of the resume. Just what an honor. These guys feel like it's been playing with him.
Yeah, well, and he's a great teammate. That's what really helps. If a guy's a great teammate, they'll talk glowingly about you.
Listen, all my teammates like me, except for the guys I got in fights with in practice every day.
And so our family clothesline player to watch for the Fiesta Bowl on offense for the Nittany Lions will be,
drum roll,
number 26, Saquon Barkley.
Well, I mean, he's just a complete player. I mean, you see him catching a ball here. He's returning kicks for touchdowns. He's, we talked about him making that key block in the Iowa comeback win. And,
yeah.
I mean, he can do it all. I mean, he's got jets and wheels, and it's just unfortunate that, he's going to be gone and we're not going to see him anymore in a Penn State uniform.
You know what else they have is time to figure out how to get him the football in this particular game. And those are always one of the more interesting things about bowl games. What do you do? What kind of wrinkles do you throw into the playbook? And I know they've been working on getting 26 of the ball any way they possibly can.
No question. And here's the reason why. I mean, look at all the moves that he makes to get from point A to point B. He's become a complete player here at Penn State. All right, now, tail of the tape, the Washington defense and how they match up with the Penn State offense. The Washington numbers, guys, are great. Okay, those are great defensive numbers. The rush numbers. It's actually the fourth straight 3-4 defense that Penn State's played, Trey. So at least in terms of communication assignments, I mean, the personnel's different, but at least communication-wise, they've seen it repeatedly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little deceiving, though, because the Pac-12, they really throw the ball around. So that 92 rushing yards is kind of like, well, you know what, Army doesn't really throw the ball too much. They've gone games where they didn't throw the ball. So, I mean, I think that's a little deceiving, but the fact is Penn State has seen that 3-4 look, and they should be fine.
The other caveat is the schedule. Look, they've been criticized for not having a very difficult schedule the last couple of years. But look, number one is number one, and the rushing defense number is number one in the country with yards allowed. And where has Penn State struggled this season at times? It's been with rushing the football. So I would look for them to attack the edges a little bit more than through the middle, because that's where the Huskies' strength is. A lot of big bodies to clog up traffic in the middle. But we'll see. Again, they got time to attack it, so we'll see how they do that.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the schedule, because that is an issue, because even in the conference, they're in the north, USC's in the south. It turned out USC was not one of the teams from the opposite division.
It's kind of like Wisconsin in the Big Ten. They didn't have difficult crossover games.
Well, they do have a great player in Vita Vea, the nose tackle. Many can project him if he enters the draft, and many people think he will, that he'll be a first-round pick. Ryan Bates says you will have your hands full with Vita Vea.
He's a different player. He's one of a kind. He reminds me a lot of the Stevie kid we played from USC last year. He's probably the most, he reminds me most like him.
Yeah, no question about that. Stevie T was really good. Remember, he's 24-25 last year because he transferred from Utah. He ended up being a 6th-round pick. This kid Vea is a 1st-round pick, Todd.
Well, that's what the kind of talent that he's been projected for, and we mentioned before, he's a run stuffer. That's what they does. They clog up traffic and they make things hard on you on those 1st and 2nd downs. So it's going to be pivotal for Penn State to get themselves in good down and distance situations and maybe avoid this double V guy.
Yeah.
Can you say Vita Vea 10 times fast? What kind of name is that? It's like Xander Diamant. Vita Vea. Vita Vea. Vita Vea.
He's in the holiday mood, man. He's
just saying.
Are you prepping me for this? I'm going to have to do it at some point. I mean, thanks. We'll take a look at the Washington defense against the Penn State defense after this. Welcome back. Great to have you with us on the Blue White Tailgate. We'll take a look now at the Penn State defense and the Washington offense. One of the key moves that didn't happen in the offseason was Brent Pry staying. I mean, he didn't leave. How important was that for the stability of this defense and what he's been able to do?
Well, I think the guys really respect Brent, and he's done a really, really good job. I mean, people were saying, oh, the sky's falling when Bob Shoop left. Well, okay, because he's going to a better program at Tennessee. Give me a break, right? And then Joe Moorhead goes and they hired Joe Moorhead, and it's like, well, how are we going to replace him? Ricky Ronnie's a good coach. I mean, these guys know what they're doing, Todd.
Look, the fact of the matter is a good, healthy program is going to turn over coordinators every couple of years. If you're winning, you want these guys in demand. Coach Franklin knows that. He's got provisional plans, and he knows what he's going to be doing to fill some slots, and he sees that stuff coming. That's why he tells kids, commit to me, commit to the school, commit to your teammates to be, and those types of situations. So, yeah, I think, for Coach Pry, I mean, look, everybody likes Coach Pry. I love the fact that he's sticking around. Louisiana Lafayette, you think, why would that job interest him? His wife's from the area. He had been an assistant there before and knows the area. But I think it's going to have to be the right fit, the absolute right fit for him to leave not only the school, but for him to leave Coach Franklin. Those two are very, very tight.
Mm-hmm. Because right now, the right fit for Brent Pry is this program with Penn State. Tail of the tape now, the Penn State defense and the Washington offense. Washington certainly puts up points. I mean, this really looks similar to what we showed you in the previous segment, just reversed. I mean, there's no real, again, there's so little to choose between these two teams when you look at the numbers.
Well, I think that they're so evenly matched. I mean, you look at the points scored, points against. It's almost identical. You've got a really good quarterback in Browning. We got McSorley. They've got a really good running back. We have the best running back in the country. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be like, late in the fourth quarter game, I think, Todd.
Well, and you look at the passing yards that Penn State has given up. Look, they did not face a lot of really good throwing programs in the Big Ten, a lot of great quarterbacks. So I think the question for me is, which Jake Browning shows up? Is it the one that was a sophomore and threw 43 touchdown passes, or the one that's a junior and seems to have had some struggles this year? So he's going to be a big factor in the game, because in any form of football, if a quarterback is hot, it's going to be a long day for your defense.
Well, Brandon Smith and the Penn State defense will have their work cut out against that Washington offense. Allison Luthman takes a closer look.
Penn State's defense is up against a powerful Washington offense for this year's bowl game. Brandon Smith says that their main focuses will be containing quarterback Jake Browning and running back Myles Gaskin.
He's able to make all the throws that he needs to make, and he's done really well the last 2 years. I think he was, a Heisman contender coming into this season. So he's a talented guy, and their running back is really good too. So they kind of complement each other well.
Defensive coordinator Brent Pry says this game is more than statistics, but a chance for seniors to cap their collegiate career on a positive note.
For the guys that are leaving the program, there's no better way to finish their career than that final season than to win that bowl game. I mean, that was as competitive as that game was last year. That sat heavy for all of us, and it sits there all year long until you get out there spring ball. You kind of shake it off a little bit, but you're always in those bowl games you're playing a high caliber opponent. The competition's going to be at its best, and I think that it puts a punctuation mark on your season. You go win that bowl game.
And this will be Penn State's second consecutive season facing a Pac-12 team after facing USC in last year's Rose Bowl. Guys.
All right, thank you so much, Allison. As always, appreciated. They're going to have their hands full with this group, especially I think with Gaskin. Gaskin's the guy I look at and say, okay, that's the pivotal player. Browning moves better, as you were talking about earlier. He moves better, Todd, than people realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And he gets a lot of love from the Pac-12 media, but you mentioned Gaskins. He's the guy who's kind of underrated, and he does a lot of the work. And Coach Pry alluded to, look, the importance of this particular victory. There's a lot of things, it's just a few things that Coach Franklin and the staff haven't hit the check boxes quite yet. The top 25 road victory is one of them, and a big bowl game victory is the other. It's important as you continue to elevate your program. You want to get away from one of these games with a big victory. And, of course, you score 49 points in this one, you can't lose it.
No, you can't. Family Clothesline player to watch on defense for the Nittany Lion football team, brought to you by the Family Clothesline. Go to PennStateClothes.com. And, Trey, that would be linebacker Jason Kabinda.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch him his last game at Penn State. I think he's really represented the program well. Obviously the kids really, really like him. He's a born leader. He makes a lot of the people around him better. I mean, he's a positive guy, positive experience guy, and he's going to be missed for sure.
84 tackles this year to lead Penn State, 69 of them in the run game. Second in the run game, believe it or not, is Brandon Smith, then it's Marcus Allen. So you get two linebackers leading in run game tackles. That's what you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was going to say, where's Manny Bowen? But I think there's like a missing person out on Manny Bowen. But other than that, it's like Brandon Smith. I'll take my chances with Brandon Smith all day long and twice on Sunday.
Well, Trey, and you mentioned the people around Jason, and he has been the rock. I mean, he's had to be, because it's kind of been a rotation around him, and to have that chemistry with a linebacking unit is important, but he's been the consistent performer all year long and in his entire career.
When you won the Fiesta Bowl against Miami, John Bruno was critical in the win for Penn State. How important is Blake Gilligan in this game with Pettis back there? Because Penn State only allows 4 yards per punt return.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, kind of going over the teams last night, kind of, doing my research. I mean, in 1983, we played in the Omaha Bowl against Washington. Yeah. The defensive MVP in that game was George Reynolds, the punter. And I could see this. I mean, it could be lining up exactly the same way, Todd.
Yeah, and Steve, you've alluded to, look, it's not just the coordinators that have changed, or one offense coordinator, a new special teams coach, Coach Galliano.
Phil Galliano has stepped in, and I talked to him before they left for Phoenix, and I said, hey, look, this probably is where I think the game's going to be won or lost. And he absolutely agreed with it. And that will be pivotal, because Penn State has return guys. Nobody thinks about Tompkins. All right, we're going to take a trip to the film room. Lots of sweaters coming up as we continue after this.
We're back on the Blue White Tailgate special Fiesta Bowl edition and special ugly holiday sweater edition. I've never been so warm in the film room in all my life.
It's nice. It's a good look for
both. It is. And I promise they win back-to-back 10-win games. I'll throw in the sweater, and we'll go into the Beer Bellies beverage film room wearing an ugly holiday sweater. And here we are. But this is not an ugly matchup. I like it. It's a really good, solid matchup. I like what the committee's done. It's 9 versus 11, another Pac-12 Big Ten matchup. So what do you see from Washington? Because they got some talent.
I see defense, and we're going to talk about defense first. And when you talk about their defense, it comes up front. They're really, really good. So let's take a look at what some of the things they do. And I anticipate they're going to play Penn State nickel. And their base, they're a 3-4 with a nickel in there, which means that, and the other thing they do is they take a starting corner and put him in the slot. So they're going to have a better matchup on the slot than Penn State has seen all year. They play a lot of two deep, and one of the things that they do that'll give Penn State troubles is a roll strong. They show with a two deep, and they're going to rotate over the top. And take a look at this play here. Again, this quarterback from Washington State goes back to pass sneak. He's getting too deep, and there's a safety comes over. They roll to a 3 deep. They're dropping 8 guys. They drop 8 guys, and they get to the quarterback with the 3-man rush. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing is they tackle very, very well. Here again, now one of the things they'll do is they'll take their outside linebacker, walk him up, put his hand down. But again, watch how this 2-deep safety comes up and makes a tackle on a short crossing route on this video. You'll see how very aggressive they are. Again, they're playing off. They're not giving up big plays, but then when you throw the ball underneath, you don't make guys miss. That's going to be important for Penn State. Now, how will they play Penn State? Will they stay in the nickel? Will they play their base with 2 linebackers? They have not really faced a running back quarterback combination like Penn State has a pass game, but I still anticipate nickel. One of the things they'll do is they'll take 2 down guys, bring 2 outside linebackers up, standing up. One of their outside linebackers, number 8, is 270 pounds. Play that nickel. Again, still be able to play that 2 deep like they like, make you work the ball underneath. So take a look at this one. And again, very aggressive upfield. They make things happen, and then they run to the football. And that's number 8, the outside linebacker, comes out and almost makes that play too as well. Very, very aggressive, a lot of speed. Now, we talked about the 3-man rush. If Washington can get to McSorley consistently with a 3-man rush, it's going to be a long day for the offense. And the guy, maybe the best defensive tackle that most of the country doesn't know about, is Vita Vea, their nose tackle. Really good as a pass rusher, very aggressive, a big-time pro prospect. Watch how he uses his hands on this pass rush here. Just a 3-man rush. He's in the backfield before Washington State's guy can even set up his feet. He was a major problem for them the entire game. They do blitz, but not very much. But again, we'll show you one of the blitzes that they run. Very, very seldom do they blitz. But again, they blitz. It's only a 4-man rush. They drop the outside linebacker. Take a look at this one. They just give you some things up front. You see they come up, almost run like a little pick, motion that guy around, and again, create problems for him. And again, creating turnovers. They're big on turnovers.
Penn State's going to have to get their center, Connor McGovern, some help, obviously,
Absolutely.
with Vea. Look, they won the Pac-12 championship last year. They got a lot of returning weapons on the offensive side of the ball. This team can score points.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at what their running backs have done. They are a running back-centered offense. You look at this, their running backs, 2,100 yards, 26 rushing TDs, and they are involved in the pass game. So they're getting over 200-something yards a game from scrimmage from their running backs. And it starts with Gaskins. Now, this is one thing that they're going to give problems for Penn State is they are a multiple personnel group. So they run 9 different personnel groups in a game. Penn State usually is 1, maybe 2. And they run the same plays. Here's an inside zone. They're playing with 2 tight ends, a running back, and 2 backs. Take a look at this inside zone and watch how good a back Gaskins is when he gets in the hole. They got everybody blocked. The backside safety's there. Whoop, doesn't make the tackle, makes a miss, makes a couple other guys miss. Now, we'll take a look. Different formation, different personnel group now, but same play. Again, they get the ball to Gaskins. Same inside zone. Now, instead of cutting back, he works front side. So take a look at how that works here and how decisive he is. He makes his move right now. Doesn't spend a lot of time in the backfield dancing. He's north and south, does some really, really good things. They also use him, Gaskins, in the Wildcat package. And again, another personnel group, more stuff for your defensive coordinator to worry about. Here they get it to their freshman running back, Ahmed. Take a look at how effective he is when he gets the ball in his hands. Again, this is a guy that I'm sure you're going to see. Because they don't have a lot of wideouts, they use their running backs in the pass game, in the run game, and again, he's got great speed. And again, once you start to load up against the run game, here's some quick play action passes. They don't give up a lot of sacks because the ball's out. But take a look at here. They run the fake in here. They get all these guys here, and you'll see him get that ball out to the post in a hurry to their receivers. Again, a lot of things. This may be one of the most complete teams Penn State has seen in terms of punt returns, kick returns. We haven't even talked about him as a punt return. Look at my film, but there's a lot of things for Penn State to worry about in this one.
I wouldn't exactly say they're mirror images, but if Coach Peterson and Coach Franklin got in a room together, I think they'd agree on a lot of things, the way to build a team.
No question. The difference is just more power run game for Washington. I think what the big thing is Washington doesn't give up a lot of negative plays. That's where Penn State has got to protect the quarterback. They can't take those tackles for losses. They've got to get Barkley on the edge and do some things in the run game.
Quickly, the extra prep time for bowl games. Who does it benefit, offense or defense?
It depends on how creative you are. You know, I always liked it from an offensive standpoint because we could put some wrinkles in, some things for the defense hasn't seen, but we'll see.
Something Coach Peterson is known for in his history. Absolutely. We'll see if Coach Ronnie can come up with something.
With this one.
No matter what we're wearing, it's always fun to be in the film room with Jay Paterno. We'll be right back on the Blue White Tailgate after this.
Interesting with Washington, they had an incredible run with Don James as their head coach. They won a national championship, and in Washington, he's legendary and should be. They've had a lot of trouble replacing him until Chris Peterson came along. And Chris Peterson, I think we all know in the set, he really had an opportunity to go anywhere he wanted. He picked Washington, and he's done a heck of a job. He's second only to Urban Meyer with an 822 winning percentage.
Yeah, I mean, he did exactly, I mean, it's unbelievable what he did at Boise State. You know, if you're not familiar with Boise State, the blue field in the middle of nowhere, I mean, what he did there was a miracle. And then for him to be at Washington, now we can actually recruit and get athletes. I mean, they're going to be really good for a long time.
And consider all the turnover, all the prime premier jobs that were open this past off season, right? Chris Peterson had that opportunity year after year after year, and he waited and handpicked a situation that he wanted to pursue. And chose
Perfect
Washington.
job for him.
Well, let's take a look at the Chris Peterson file. And by the way, Trey's comments are sponsored by the Idaho State Tourism Board. All right, you can see he took over in 2013. He led them into the Final Four last year after the great run at Boise State and the entertaining bowl games. I'm wondering what he might dial up here. And by the way, who coaches the return game for Washington? He does. He coaches the return game. How about that?
Kick it out of bounds.
That's exactly right. Keep going out of bounds.
I don't want to see what he's dialing up. Just kick it out of bounds. If you remember the Boise State-Oklahoma game from years and years ago, and if you didn't Google it, and the Statue of Liberty play is one of the greatest bowl plays ever called.
Unbelievable. They ran a hook and ladder to get down there, too. That's the other part. So, I mean, he'll dial up some interesting stuff. Jake Browning, the quarterback, phenomenal year last year. Look at the numbers, the career numbers for him. And you'll see at 77 career touchdowns, 43 of them were last year, but 18 this year. Completion percentage about the same, but 18 this year with only 5 picks.
It makes you wonder if he's still seeing Alabama's defensive linemen chasing him around from last year's college football semifinal. I'm not so sure he's recovered from that, but that's really what you need is you got to put pressure on this guy to make him get rid of the ball and give him happy feet. Don't let him get comfortable in the pocket.
Well, they also have, one of the very, very good running backs in the country. I would say top 5 guy.
Yes.
So they didn't have him last year. He wasn't nearly the player he was this year. It's like because they're running the ball more. That's why he's not, having the opportunities to throw as much. But if you look at his percentages, that's where it's interesting. You see him on third down. You see what his overall completion percentage is. He's a really good player.
Yeah, he doesn't have the options at wide receiver because, John Ross went to the NFL after running a 3.2 40-yard dash or whatever it was. So Dante Pettis has been his primary target. He uses his tight ends well. You're right about Gaskin. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons just like Saquon Barkley. I mean, it's a good overall offense.
I think Ross left his hands at Washington. I'm not so sure he took him to the NFL. He can run, but I don't know if he can still catch. But you mentioned Pettis. He's more of a possession receiver type guy. You think about Deshaun Hamilton for Penn State. Well, Pettis has 14 more receptions this year than Hamilton does. Same number of touchdowns, a little less per catch average. So, he's a move the chains type of guy, a 6'1" receiver, can create matchup problems for your defensive backs.
The nose tackle again. What was his name again? Because I might have to say it during the game.
It's the Vita Vea Vegeman, like Lucille Ball. Vita Vea, whatever his name is, whatever.
Ricky Ronnie says they'll have to create angles against this guy.
Obviously, we need to make sure that we have good angles all the time on those guys. You're always going to have a hard time moving somebody who's 6'5", 350 pounds, okay? But you're really going to have a hard time if you don't have good angles to do so. So it's about myself and Coach Linegrover, Coach Bowen, and Coach Gaddis, making sure we all get on the same page and see, hey, what is the best angle against this defense to give our guys a chance to be successful.
And it's interesting because they are not a big blitz team. I mean, they run this 3-4, so they'll send a linebacker or whatever, but they're not a big blitz team. They like to drop a lot of guys.
Yeah, so the question is, how do you block them? Well, what I like about bowl games is everybody gets healthy. You get plenty of time, and they've had a chance, Penn State's offensive line, to work themselves back into what they want. Ryan Bates on the right side now, and we can figure this out and figure out a way to block these guys. And as you said, Steve, before, facing another 3-4. So they should feel fairly comfortable with what they're doing.
Now here's the other part. Can they exploit that Washington secondary at some point? Juwan Johnson breaks it down.
Well, they dropped 8 and 7 in coverage, so we haven't pretty much seen that all year. They don't rush a lot, and so they've rushed 3 and 4, and pretty much let their secondary and their linebackers do most of the covering. So what we have to do is just pretty much do what we've been doing all year, like I said before, and just making plays.
And again, this is where I think the running backs and Gesicki at tight end come into play. It's a little different animal than what Washington has seen this year with the way Penn State can attack.
Yeah, and again, they haven't faced anybody like Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
I mean, so they are going to, Ricky Ronnie is going to get the ball in his hands as much as possible, Todd, and see what he can do.
I don't see this game staying in the 20s, fellas.
No, it's not
13-10 or a Big 12 game.
Yeah,
It's going to be in the 30s, maybe even higher.
Yeah.
Well, we need to get a Pac-12 perspective on all of this, and Yogi Roth has been an analyst on the Pac12 Network for the last couple of years. He'll talk with our Allison Luthman as we continue after this.
Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate. We are joined by Pac-12 football analyst Yogi Roth. Hey, Yogi, thanks so much for calling in today. We're really excited to have you here.
Yeah, no, I love being here. Love Pennsylvania football. I lean a little bit towards Pitt for obvious reasons, but thanks for having me. It's going to be a great bowl season.
Well, hey, we can move past that. We're going to focus on Penn State and Washington today. We're going to break down a little bit into individual players in just a little bit. But first, I want to know your initial thoughts when you saw that Washington and Penn State were heading to the Fiesta Bowl.
Well, I was really excited for both teams. I think they're two teams that, had 2 slip-ups that could have kind of gone either way, and then they're in the college football playoff. So they have a real argument, and now on this stage, they'll have the opportunity to showcase the country that they could be a CFP team. And obviously, with the history behind the Pac-12 and Big Ten and the Rose Bowl, which Penn State clearly is accustomed to, you get basically that in a different setting. So I think big picture, college football fans, you're really excited about this ball game.
And both of these teams are coming in with elite quarterbacks in Trace McSorley and Jake Browning. What strengths do you see in each of these players, and how do they differ?
Well, Trace is awesome. I was around him this summer. He was a counselor at the Elite 11 quarterback camp that I coach at and work at. Also know Jake Browning, obviously covering him at the Pac12 Networks. And they're both similar in terms of, I would describe them as scrambling pocket passers. And by that, I mean, they can stand in the pocket and deliver when they need to. But when they get outside the pocket, they're probably their most lethal. They're so accurate on the run. They're so accurate, what I call off-platform, second, third reaction throws, and things are in their face, and it gets chaotic. They're both really relaxed. Different types of athletes, but both probably more dynamic than you think, definitely with Jake Browning. I think extremely accurate on the field. They both obviously trust their receivers in terms of throwing it up to Dante Pettis or throwing it up to the number of receivers, or Gesicki at the tight end spot for Trey. So I like that. And then, of course, they're helped by their run game. And to me, what's most interesting in this ball game, as kind of a side story for both of these young men, is Joe Moorhead obviously not there now as the head coach of Mississippi State, the quarterback coach, OC. Same thing at UW with Jonathan Smith. He moves on to be the head coach at Oregon State. So I really like the fact that both of these guys, they're kind of policing their offense to a certain degree with other quarterback coaches. I know for UW, Chris Peterson has kind of helped out in that regard. I'm not sure necessarily what they've done at Penn State, but they both are kind of living similar scripts right now.
And sticking with these dynamic matchups, Penn State's coming in with Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley, Washington Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year in Vita Vea. Can you kind of break down this matchup for us?
Well, I mean, it's why you turn it on, outside of the things that we just talked about. I mean, this is one of the best players in the country. You could argue one of the best backs we've seen in college football, I think, in the last 5-10 years. Saquon was also around us this summer at the Elite 11 and the opening on Nike's campus. And I remember looking at him being like, whoa, like one calf is like an entire body of somebody else. You know what I mean? He was physically, obviously, he's special. And you look at Vita Vea, and you're going to see the same thing. I thought coming into the year, Vita Vea was going to be the Pac-12's Solomon Thomas, a top 10 draft pick, dominant defensive player. You'll see him move all over the line, but what allows him to thrive is, number one, his crazy skill set. He used to be a running back in high school, but also Greg Gaines, his partner on the interior defensive line, was also a high school running back. They've got good players off the edge. They're built on the middle of their defense. So to me, the storyline is UW's defense. I don't think the Pac-12 gets a ton of national respect for the defensive football being played. And you look at UW, I think they allowed 92 yards per game on the season rushing, which is tops in America. And now how do they handle going up against an offense that, as we talked about, is gifted at quarterback and also special at running back? So I'm excited to see the defense of UW play. And when you have a bowl game, and you know this, when you have a month to prepare, you can really understand run fits. You can really understand concepts and route combinations by offenses. So I think it's advantage to a defense to a large degree when you get into a bowl game, because there's only so many things that offenses do in this day and age in college football, and you have this amount of time to prepare. So I'm looking forward to watching this matchup. I think for UW, it's a huge national stage for them to say, look, we kick off 5-6 guys a year to the NFL. We're one of the predominant defensive players in the country. I think yesterday with signing day proved that once again. And you look at the draft, they've done it every year. I just don't know how much people know about that.
And switching over to the other side of the ball, the Washington offensive line is so strong. What kind of challenges are they going to present for the Penn State defense? And what do they need to do to be able to hold them off?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What they've done a nice job. They lost Trey Adams early in the season. He's an All-American left tackle, projected as a top 5 draft pick to a knee injury. So when that happened, they had to reshuffle their offensive line. And you'll see what they do is they're not asking Jake Browning to sit back there forever. They're getting the ball out. In the run game, they're putting bodies on bodies, just trying to, the phrase is called just track the defensive line. Just get on train tracks and just go, 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 and allow Myles Gaskin, which is surprisingly the most underrated back, I think, in the marquee bowl games in the country. Goes for over 1,000 third straight year, and he doesn't really take a hit. He's a guy that's going to kind of find his way. He's really patient behind this offensive line, and all of a sudden, boom, he could burst behind the linebackers, behind a interior defensive lineman for a 7, 12, 25-yard gain, as well as he can catch it out of the backfield. So I think that what UW does well is they can scheme people up extremely well. The way that you can disrupt that is by disrupting the offensive line. So I'm looking forward, because I do like the edges of Penn State's defensive front. I think they're unique there, and I think they're going to pose some problems for UW, so it'll be fun to see how it shakes out.
Yogi, thank you so much for joining us again today. We really, really appreciate it. And guys, we'll be right back with more Blue White Tailgate after this.
Welcome back, 3 Poinsettia for all of our viewers. Okay, great to have you with us. We go to the good, the bad. Wait for the graphics, Steve. The ugly. And because it is the holidays, there's only one choice for good.
Well, of course it has to be me because I am good. But my good is Saquon Barkley, and I said it earlier on the show. You know, it's not good, it's great. The fact is that this kid was here for 3 years, coming from where he came from, his parents, the job that they did with him. He's a great young man. You never hear a bad word said about the guy. The guy's the premier player in the country, and my good is the fact is we got a chance to see him for 3 years, and we should be very lucky.
All right, I get the bad. Hey, NFL, what's a catch? Get out of your own way. Just get out of your own way. You're a $15 billion business. Stop ruining it.
We could talk about that for a while. I'll go with the ugly. How about coaching longevity in the state of Florida? When Lane Kiffin is the longest tenured coach in Florida.
Good news, Lane just went for 2 again.
And he's got a 10-year deal at Florida Atlantic. Coaching longevity. If you're a recruit in Florida, and I've heard there's some good recruits down there, some good players, who do you commit to? They don't last more than a year or two. Take a look at the list. Nothing but turnover with all those schools in Florida.
All right, so now let's get to our picks. We finally get to the Pick'em segment, which is always entertaining. Brought to you by #1 Cycle Center, who've been anxiously awaiting the Trey pick. Here's how the season played out. Obviously, blind squirrels can find acorns based on the leader. All right, I get Central Florida and Auburn. It's adorable Central Florida's in this game. Auburn will win. Okay, Trey, you get Notre Dame, LSU.
Of course he does.
This will be good.
Okay, it's like, you know, the women and children keep them at home. Notre Dame, LSU. Again, of course, I'm going to say I don't really care because they both cheat. I think what they should do is they should fire Ed Orgeron, cart back Les Miles, and then maybe they would have a shot at beating Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame's going to win.
Oh, Ed Orgeron's fun to listen to. All right, Oklahoma, Georgia. This is a good semifinal, real good semifinal. I'm going to go with Oklahoma's defense because their offense, look, it's legendary stuff. Their Heisman Trophy winner, Baker Mayfield. I think their defense is going to do enough against Georgia's offense to win this game.
All right, Jay, you have the Sugar Bowl, Alabama and Clemson.
Alabama-Clemson is one of those games that everybody's been waiting for all year. They thought it'd be in the finals. It's not. I think Alabama has too much experience across the board in these types of games. I like them to win in a really close one yet again between those two programs.
Time now for our keys to the Fiesta Bowl, brought to you by our good friends at Fiore GMC. And the first one to weigh in is Todd.
We expect a good old-fashioned shootout, and in those situations, you need to score touchdowns and not settle for field goals. So get 6, avoid the 3.
My keys to the game is Andre Pettis, the return man, legendary guy. Broke the NCAA record returning 4 punts for touchdowns this year. He's got 9 in his career. They have to somehow contain him, Steve. That's my key.
Which team can balance it out? I mean, which team can get a balance of run and pass in the game where suddenly a defensive coordinator is looking over saying, hey, look, they can do either one. We've got to make some choices here. So whomever can get to that first, I think, is the one's going to win the game. So I'm looking forward to it. Guys, happy holidays.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
Yes, and really, Poinsettias really for everybody. I mean, we actually have more in the back.
Good stuff. Festive. A fiesta.
For Allison, Jay, Todd, Trey, I'm Steve Jones. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate Show.